According to a 2022 study by the American Psychological Association, 85% of people report experiencing a major setback at least once in their life that led to feelings of despair and a loss of confidence. Setbacks, whether they come in the form of job losses, personal failures, or unforeseen health crises, can strip away our sense of purpose and clarity, making it feel almost impossible to move forward. Yet, within those difficult experiences lies the potential for growth. But for most, as it was for me, that potential can feel hidden behind an overwhelming wall of pain, confusion, and fear. I'm Rachel, 36 years old, and this is my story of wrestling with setbacks, fighting through dark moments, and attempting to find meaning amidst the rubble of my life. The morning everything changed was like any other. I was rushing to finish a report for a high-stakes project at work when my phone buzzed. It was a message from my doctor, asking me to come in as soon as possible for a follow-up on some recent tests. My heart raced, but I told myself it was routine. Hours later, the world came crashing down as I sat in that cold, sterile office, listening to words that seemed to blend together in a haze of disbelief. "You'll need immediate treatment, and there's a long recovery period," she said, her voice calm but direct. Everything seemed to spiral after that. Work was not understanding. They let me go under the guise of restructuring. Friends drifted away when I couldn't keep up with social plans. I was completely on my own, battling a major illness and nursing the open wound of feeling like my entire life was collapsing. As the days turned into weeks, I found myself slipping further into despair. The quiet mornings were the worst. I'd sit on the edge of my bed, staring blankly at the wall, wondering where everything went so wrong. I'd once had a career I loved, friends who seemed like family, and a sense of direction. But now, every day felt like wading through quicksand. The more I struggled to escape the feeling of drowning, the deeper I sank. The days were lonely, but the nights were agonizing. Sleep eluded me as my mind filled with a ceaseless loop of doubts and questions. How could everything change so fast? How was I supposed to keep going? The idea of moving forward seemed foreign, and the thought of overcoming this setback felt impossible. I'd often replay the years leading up to this point, pinpointing every decision I'd made, every opportunity one didn't seize, every call I didn't make, as if examining the broken pieces could somehow put them back together. Regret turned into a gnawing sense of guilt, eating away at me from the inside. I started blaming myself, wondering if my illness was somehow my fault, a punishment for not living better, for not caring for myself the way I should have. It became a vicious cycle. Regret would fuel my guilt would morph into shame, and shame would lead me to isolate myself even further. I stopped answering calls, ignored messages, and began letting the world fade away. Life felt like a maze I didn't know how to navigate, each corner bringing me closer to a dead end. One of the hardest parts was the feeling of purposelessness. My career had been my anchor. I loved my work and had plans to grow within the company. I'd sacrificed so much for it, only to find myself unceremoniously cut loose when things got tough. The realization hit me hard. I was dispensable. The career I'd built, the friendships I'd fostered, the life I'd crafted, it all felt as if it had vanished in an instant. As I lay in bed each day, I wondered what my purpose was now. Without work, without friends, without the physical energy to pursue my passions, I felt like a hollow shell. I tried to read, to keep my mind occupied, but the words on the page blurred, the sentences slipping away as quickly as they came. My days became a cycle of sleep, forced meals, and a monotonous drag through hours that felt endless. The weight of isolation. Isolation became my closest companion. I would tell myself that people didn't understand, that they couldn't possibly grasp the depth of what I was going through. And while some part of me yearned for connection, for the comfort of someone who could hold my hand through the pain, I couldn't bring myself to reach out. The fear of being a burden, of having my vulnerability exposed, kept me locked away, hiding in plain sight. Over time, the quiet, empty space around me grew louder. I began to feel like a ghost in my own life, watching from the sidelines as the world carried on without me. My family tried to reach out, but I shut them out, insisting I was fine, that I could handle it. But I wasn't fine, and every day the weight of loneliness pressed down a little harder. The shadows of self-doubt. Months passed, and as the initial shock of the illness began to subside, it left behind a residue of doubt and fear. Every dream, every goal I once held felt distant, like they belonged to someone else. I no longer saw myself as capable, resilient, or strong. Instead, I saw someone fragile, someone barely holding it together. It was as though the setback had stripped away every ounce of confidence I once had, leaving only a shell of uncertainty. In the quiet moments, I'd wonder if I would ever feel like myself again. Would I ever reclaim that sense of purpose, of belonging, of self-assurance? Or was I destined to live in the shadows of this setback, forever haunted by what could have been? The haunting echo of what was lost. The hardest part was living with the echoes of what once was, the laughter, the camaraderie, the ambition. There were times I'd catch myself reminiscing about a life that seemed like a distant memory, like it belonged to someone else. I'd think about the laughter shared over late-night projects, the excitement of hitting a career milestone, and the quiet satisfaction of knowing I was on the right path. Those memories would linger in my mind, each one a painful reminder of everything I'd lost. There were days I'd find myself breaking down in tears, mourning a version of myself that felt irretrievably lost. Each setback was like a punch to the gut, a brutal reminder of just how far I'd fallen. And every time I tried to pick up the pieces, to find a silver lining, it felt like the universe was determined to knock me back down. A cycle of heartache and helplessness. The days bled into each other, a relentless cycle of heartache and helplessness. I tried to muster the courage to rebuild, to find some semblance of normalcy, but it felt like every effort was met with resistance, as if the universe was conspiring to keep me down. Friends who had once been close seemed like strangers, and family, while well-meaning, couldn't understand the depth of my despair. Their encouragement often felt hollow, their words a painful reminder that they couldn't see the darkness I was living in. The tipping point. There came a day when the weight of it all became too much to bear. I found myself sitting alone on the floor of my small apartment, surrounded by reminders of the life I once had. The walls seemed to close in, my chest felt tight, and for the first time, I considered the possibility that maybe I couldn't find a way out of this darkness. It was a terrifying thought, one that shook me to my core, and in that moment, I felt as though I'd reached a point of no return. As I sat there, overwhelmed by the sheer magnitude of my struggle, something within me stirred. It was small, barely a whisper, but it was there, a tiny voice reminding me that I'd come this far, that I'd endured unimaginable pain, and was still here, still that night on the floor of my apartment, when everything seemed to be crumbling. I realized I had a choice. I could stay buried in the despair that had been my constant companion for so long, or I could start taking small steps, even if they felt insignificant, to rebuild myself. For the first time, I felt the faintest glimmer of hope, like a whisper telling me that maybe, just maybe, I didn't have to stay in this darkness. The first step was simple, but it felt monumental. I began reaching out, even though vulnerability had never come easily to me. At first, it was just a few texts to family members, a hesitant reply to an old friend's message. I didn't dive into the depths of what I'd been going through, but instead took things slowly. Just reconnecting in the most basic way was a start, and each message, each tiny interaction, felt like a small stitch pulling me back together. The second step was acknowledging that I couldn't face this alone. I found a therapist, a compassionate professional who specialized in helping people overcome setbacks. That first session was overwhelming. Speaking my pain out loud brought it crashing back. But as I sat there, pouring out the confusion, the heartbreak, and the shame, I felt an unfamiliar sensation, relief. It was as if, by sharing my burden, it began to feel a little lighter. Through therapy, I learned the importance of mindfulness. At first, it sounded strange, even impossible. My mind was a chaotic storm, and the idea of sitting quietly with my thoughts felt terrifying. But as I began to practice, just a few minutes each day, I discovered that mindfulness wasn't about erasing the pain or the negative thoughts, but about observing them without judgment. This practice allowed me to create a small space between myself and my suffering, a space where I could begin to breathe again. Taking control of my narrative. One of the most transformative moments in my recovery was when I started to take control of my narrative. My therapist encouraged me to write down everything that had happened: the illness, the job loss, the loneliness. At first, I resisted. I didn't want to relive it. But over time, I started to see how writing could become a tool for healing. I no longer felt like a passive victim in my own story. Instead, I was reclaiming the events that had shattered me, examining them through a new lens. Through journaling, I began to understand that setbacks, though incredibly painful, didn't have to define my future. This realization gave me the courage to look for small, positive steps I could take each day. I started setting tiny, achievable goals, like going for a walk or reading a book for 10 minutes. These goals weren't earth-shattering, but they were manageable, and each time I completed one, I felt a small surge of accomplishment that reminded me I was moving forward. Discovering the power of community. As my confidence grew, I joined a local support group. Walking into that first meeting was terrifying. A room full of strangers felt daunting. But as I listened to others share their stories, I realized that I wasn't alone in my struggle. Here were people who, like me, had faced unimaginable setbacks, but were still fighting to move forward. Sharing my story in that room, surrounded by people who understood, was a profound experience. For the first time in months, I felt connected, and I started to believe that healing was truly possible. Within this group, I found a sense of belonging and encouragement that helped lift me from the depths of isolation. I discovered that setbacks, while deeply personal, could also become bridges that connected us to others. We weren't just a room full of people who had failed or suffered losses. We were individuals striving for something better, supporting each other every step of the way. Redefining success and embracing small wins. One of the hardest lessons I had to learn was that my old definition of success no longer applied. Success wasn't about achieving grand milestones or receiving external validation. Instead, it became about the quiet, personal victories that no one else could see, getting out of bed on days when the weight of everything felt unbearable, making it through a week without isolating myself, finding moments of joy in activities that once brought me comfort. These small wins added up. I realized that embracing setbacks as opportunities for growth wasn't about ignoring the pain or pretending that the struggle didn't exist. It was about recognizing that each moment of difficulty held the potential to teach me something valuable. I became more patient with myself, more forgiving. And as I shifted my mindset, I began to see each day as an opportunity to start again. Building new foundations. In time, I found the courage to start rebuilding my life, one small step at a time. I applied for new job opportunities, but this time with a clearer sense of what I wanted. I no longer felt pressured to chase titles or accolades. Instead, I was looking for a role that aligned with my values, something that allowed me to feel fulfilled without compromising my well-being. Eventually, I landed a new job. It wasn't as high-paying or prestigious as my previous one, but it was a place where I felt appreciated, where I could grow at my own pace. For the first time, I approached my career without the burden of perfectionism. I allowed myself to make mistakes, to ask for help, and to lean on others when needed. This new approach to work, to life, really became a testament to the resilience I had discovered within myself. Outside of work, I reconnected with hobbies I'd long abandoned. I took up painting, something I'd loved in college, but had given up in pursuit of a serious career. Returning to this creative outlet felt like reclaiming a piece of myself I had lost. Each brushstroke was a reminder that I was still here, still creating, still capable of finding joy. The transformative power of acceptance. One of the greatest breakthroughs in my journey was learning the power of acceptance. For so long, I'd fought against my circumstances, resisted the pain, and questioned why I had to endure such hardships. But as I embraced acceptance, I found a deep sense of peace. Acceptance didn't mean giving up. It meant acknowledging my reality without judgment and focusing on what I could control. With acceptance came an unexpected gift, gratitude. I began to appreciate the resilience that had carried me through each setback, the strength I hadn't known I possessed. I was grateful for the people who had supported me, for the lessons I'd learned, and even for the pain, because it had shaped me into someone who was capable of withstanding life's challenges. Looking toward the future. Today, as I look back on the journey, I no longer see myself as the person who was broken by setbacks. Instead, I am someone who has been shaped, refined, and strengthened by each struggle. I am not the same person I was before, but that's okay. The person I've become is resilient, compassionate, and unafraid to start again. I now know that setbacks are not the end. They are merely chapters in a larger story, each one filled with opportunities for growth, learning, and transformation. Life may not always go as planned, but I've learned that even in the darkest moments, there is always a path forward, a glimmer of hope, and a chance to build something new. The book that transformed my journey. In the middle of my journey, I stumbled upon a book that would ultimately transform the way I viewed setbacks and helped me turn my pain into purpose. Embracing setbacks as opportunities for growth became my constant companion, guiding me through each stage of recovery with insights that felt like they were written just for me. The book taught me that setbacks don't define us, our responses do. Through powerful stories, practical steps, and gentle encouragement, it showed me how to navigate each struggle with resilience and grace. If you find yourself facing a setback, wondering how you'll ever move forward, I can't recommend this book enough. Embracing setbacks as opportunities for growth offers a lifeline for anyone feeling lost, providing a roadmap toward healing and self-discovery. You can get a digital copy at librify.com, the link is in the description. This book helped me find my way back to myself, and I truly believe it can do the same for you.